What exactly is the Leadville 100? Because it's been popping up on my YouTube feed because I've been diving into that, watch a video, watch another video, watch another video. And so now in the morning, I'm doing my runs, a lot of it on the treadmill, sometimes outside, and I'll put up a documentary of somebody running the Leadville 100. But what exactly is that?
Uh, it's a 100-mile foot race that starts in Leadville, Colorado, um, which is at 10,200 feet, so super high altitude. Um, you start at 4 a.m. in the dark, and you run out through town out to around Turquoise Lake, and then you go up. It's called the Power Line Climb. You go up and down that. You run past Mount Elbert, and then you go up Hope Pass, hit the high point of the course, which is 12,600 feet. You drop down into this old mining town of Winfield, and then you turn around and go back. And you get to 100 miles. Over the course of the 100 miles, you gain and lose 14,000 feet of elevation. And you have up to 30 hours to do it all.
Okay. So you have 30 hours to do that, and then they just hard cut. People come get you, take you off, or you can.
Yeah, they're like 10 aid stations along the way, I guess 5 in each direction or so, and there are cutoff times at each one. So if they think you're not going to make it in time, they stop you there.
Okay. It's
And
pretty heavy duty about that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I haven't seen it, but someone could be on the finishing stretch, like heading into Leadville, and the clock hits 30 hours, and you can still run across the finish line, but it won't be an official finish.
So
Yeah.
they take that cutoff pretty seriously.
Yeah.
In your opinion, at least for me, maybe because it's the one that I stumbled across and then I've been watching it, so it's been populating. Is the Leadville like the most famous or like the most difficult of the 100-mile races?
So Leadville it was sort of the second 100-mile trail race that was started in the U.S. The first one is Western States Endurance Run, which is in California. That was started as a horseback race, and then some guy decided, or his horse went lame, and he decided to run the route on foot instead of on horseback. So that was like 1974. And then in about 10 years later, I think it was 1984, Leadville, the big mine that sort of employed most of the people in Leadville, shut down. And Ken Klober and Merrill, who are still involved with the race, and some other people got together and said, we need to figure out a way to get people to come to Leadville and to stay overnight so that they're spending money. And so they said, if people are going to run 100 miles, they're going to need to come here and train and stay overnight for the race weekend. And so that's when they started the Leadville Trail 100. So Western States is still the most like competitive and prestigious 100-mile race in the U.S. And Leadville, and there's another famous one in the San Juans in Colorado called Hard Rock. Those two are sort of like second tier. Leadville it got really famous because it was in the book Born to Run. I don't know if you've read that.
I have not read that yet.
Which was sort of, a lot of people think of it as like the barefoot running book that came out around, it was around like 2008, I think. and that sort of helped this whole like boom of ultra running that we're in right now was that book. And then
Have you read it? Is it a book
I
you'd
have,
recommend?
yeah, it was like given to me when I graduated college in 2010, and I just heard about all the barefoot running stuff. I'm like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. But it's actually like a good story about um, just ultra running and the Tarahumara, who is they're a indigenous tribe in Mexico they're great ultra runners. And at one point they came up and raced the Leadville 100 and won it. And that sort of led to this book being written. But yeah, you should, um, if you're like getting into ultra running, it's like a great book to read.
I will absolutely read that
Yeah,
to my list. Maybe that'll probably be my next one. I'll bump that up.
Sure.
That sounds really interesting. Barefoot
Yeah,
and the running style. I know you've obviously in your bio. We'll get into. It says on Instagram. It says 2-time Leadville 100 champion, trail champion. So you ran that multiple times. Have you run any other 100-mile races?
yep. So I've done Leadville 3 times now, and I've done 100-mile race in Australia and New Zealand, and sort of the biggest one in the whole world now is called UTMB Ultra Trail Mount Blanc, which is a 100-mile lap around Mount Blanc. You start in Chamonix, France, and you run through Italy and Switzerland and back to where you start. And that one has twice as much elevation gain and loss as Leadville does.
Twice.
Yeah, so over 30,000 feet.
Jeez, that's so much. And you're running these, I imagine, if Leadville cutoff is 30 hours, are they all kind of within that window?
So the cutoff for UTMB might be close. I think it's almost 2 days. So like somewhere between 40 and 48 hours, I think. And like for me, I ran Leadville in just under 16 hours, and I ran UTMB in just under 25 hours.
It's under 16.
Yeah.
When all the documentaries I watched, they're like, I'm just shooting to get under the 24-hour mark. Was that under 16 is crazy.
Yeah, only 4 of us have done it in the 41 years of the race.
What does that look like for pacing wise and like, because I can't even fathom running 100 miles in 16 hours. My sisters and I, we did a 24-hour max distance just on a track. So we were just on a track and we were just moving. We had little lap counters, so we were just clicking away in 24 hours max distance. We did not get close to 100 miles on this track for 24 hours. So I can't even fathom doing that on a trail with the elevation in 16 hours. What does the actual pacing and stuff look like for that?
So it's, I think it's about somewhere between 9:30 and 9:45 per mile. Obviously that changes depending on elevation, if I'm going up or down. But I'm pretty much running the whole way, even going up Hope Pass, which can get pretty steep on the backside when you're heading in. You gain, it's like 3,000 feet and like 4 or 5 miles, which is a pretty steep hike. So
that's up there.
So I'll hike some of that, but other than that, pretty much running the whole time.
What do you get like out of winning? Is it bragging rights? Is it a purse? Is it just for the sport? I know I come from a lower sport as well, with Olympic weightlifting and then CrossFit, but they have more money than I would imagine ultra endurance trail running does. Like, what do you get for that?
So there's no prize money at Leadville or
Bragging rights.
Western States or Hard Rock, like I mentioned.
Mhm.
But I was an amateur before I ran Leadville the first time, and Leadville led to winning Leadville that first time. It led to me getting sponsored by On
I saw
and a
that.
few other brands. And it's obviously not, I don't know, like professional team sport salary, but um, for some, it's like enough to live by. And
Mhm.
I get to travel. They pay for my travel to go around the
Good.
world and run in the mountains. So,
I was just
um,
speaking with a fencer. He's trying to go to the 2028 Olympics in fencing, and it's same thing. It's and not a giant team sport, not a lot of money at their events, and so you got to play the social media game. You're trying to get sponsors where you can, and it's just a sport of passion, which is
yeah,
really unfortunate because I mean fencing is amazing. Ultra running is just like mind blowing to me the amount of
yeah,
distance that you guys can cover at the time. So it's hopefully, and it does seem to be getting at least some degree of traction and popularity over the more recent years.
yeah. I think it definitely is, and um, I think there's more money going into it every year. But yeah, it's sort of this weird, like the races themselves, especially here in the U.S., sort of portray themselves as like amateur races when there's like decent, like bonuses and contracts on the line, despite there not being prize money.
That's good. With the Leadville and these other races, are they invite only? Is it just sign up? How do you get over to them?
That's sort of another tricky thing.
Okay.
So Leadville, I think there's like eight, about 800, 700 or 800 runners will start the race. And there's a lottery to get a spot on the line. But they have, I think they just added a couple more, but there are 3 races at shorter distances throughout the year that you can go to and earn a little token that sort of lets you bypass the lottery. So that's how
Mm.
I got in originally, was at a race in Texas. It was like a 40-mile race, and I came second and got entry into Leadville that way. Um, then I don't know, Leadville's not very transparent with their lottery, but for a race like Western States, which is an even smaller field, it's like 370, and they'll get like, it's something crazy like 20,000 applicants. Um, and it can take you like 10 years to get in just going through the lottery. And so I'm actually doing Western States this June, and they also have like a system, like a series of races that you can go to and skip the lottery. And they call it like a golden ticket
Okay.
race. So I just got back from New Zealand where I got a golden ticket to Western
Yeah.
States there.
Okay. So was the purpose of going to New Zealand to try and get to Western states?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's in June.
Yeah.
And where does that kick out of?
So it starts in Tahoe and then runs through them. It's a point to point. So, and you finish in Auburn, California.
What is training looking like for that? As much or as little detail as you want to give.
Yeah.
Like how many miles are you putting down a week? Are we doing like long days, slow? I guess obviously it's very different versus training for a marathon. It's kind of just that you're training that endurance and getting volume, I would imagine.
For me, it's actually pretty similar
Okay.
to marathon training. The workout, like I still do 2 speed workouts a week because I came from road marathoning,
Okay.
and the speed workouts are pretty similar. It's just the running on the non-speed work days. I'm running on trails up and down mountains. Um, so I'll do between 90 and 110 miles a week, and then try and get, um, I don't know, like 10 to 15,000 feet of elevation gain and loss per week.
Okay. And you're out here in Colorado, right? So you're
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And then, when I'm training for Leadville, I try and get high up in the mountains as much as I can to sort of get used to being at 10,000 feet plus. For Western states, there is a little bit of altitude, but the big challenge there is you can get really hot. So I'm going to
I
try
guess
and,
doing that in June would be brutal.
yeah, it can get over 100 degrees.
Jeez.
So that's what I'm going to, right now I'm still sort of in my like break, recovering from the race in New Zealand. And I think next week I'm going to start building up.
When you do these 100-mile races, do you start them like knowing you're going to finish them, or is there some of them where you're like, I'm just feeling it out, I'm just doing it for fun? Like, what's the mindset look like for starting that race?
I'm pretty confident now that I can finish. That's like one of the coolest things about the first time you do it is like I had only run a 50-mile race before. So it's like, I don't even know
Yeah.
if I'm going to be good at this, or if I'm going to finish, or how my body's going to react after 50 miles. But yeah, now at this point, I'm pretty confident that I can finish. It's just sort of, how can I sort of best manage my effort and fueling, so that I'm running hard the whole time.
What does fueling look like for you? Are you carrying like gels, electrolytes? What a mixture of both?
Yeah, it's mostly gels, and some drink mix in bottles, and then I'll mix in other things like a bar, or I don't know, sometimes I'll grab potato chips from the aid station, if I need something salty because the
Yeah.
gels are so sweet. Um, yeah, and everything now is about, trying to get over 100 grams of carbs per hour.
Okay.
Um, so a lot of that's coming from the cycling world. And so I have a sponsor, Carbs Fuel, and they make a gel that has 50 grams of carbs.
Jeez.
So just one
So,
of those
yeah, that
every
thing's
30
loaded.
minutes. Yeah.
They're packing 50. Is it a bigger gel? How are they packing
It's like
50 in there?
it's a little bit bigger, but,
Okay.
you can still fit in your pocket.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And they're out of Golden. So
Oh,
they're,
nice.
um, yeah. So that's what, yeah, it's funny. I remember the first time I raced Leadville, that was my first 100-mile race. I'm like, I can't believe I just did that while just like mostly eating these little gel packets.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah.
Because like right out of the gate, you won like your first time, right?
Yep.
That, and then you've ran it 3 times, won
Yeah.
twice.
Yep.
Okay, that's awesome. Was it like win, not win, win, or was it?
So I won in 2021 and 2022, and then I ran last year and came second.
Okay. What do you think the difference was there? Or just off day? Sometimes
Um,
those happen.
so last year was my fastest time too.
Okay.
It was just,
Yeah,
someone else ran faster.
happens. Sometimes,
Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes it
He
happens.
broke the course record.
What's the course record now?
Um, 15:26.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So, do you have like fun while you're doing it? Like, like
Um,
where's the fun? Because I come from a sport of CrossFit, and the sport of
yeah,
CrossFit is it's suffering. Like, there's no fun parts. You're not like throwing around a ball. It's just like how well can you suffer, and then training is just how well you can suffer, so you can suffer better in competition.
right.
That's endurance running as well to a
Yeah.
degree. How well can you suffer?
Yeah, it is this, yeah, like type 2 fun. A lot of
Yeah,
it is, the sort of feelings you get afterwards. But I think like competing is fun.
of course,
Winning is fun.
of course.
Yeah, like I don't know, like the camaraderie of the events and the aid stations. And um, one of the fun things about Leadville is that since it's an out and back,
Mhm.
you get to see, like, you cross paths with every single runner in the whole race at one point. So that, like, seeing, like, if you're leading, like, you get to see the person who's in second place, or if you're in, like, last year I was in second place and I see the guy in first place, like, coming back. And so there's like that intensity. But then when you pass the people that are just trying to get under the 30-hour cutoff, there's like the camaraderie of, like, they're encouraging me and I try to encourage them. And um, so I think that's fun too. And another sort of fun part is, while it's like very much an individual sport, running in general, there's
Mhm.
like the team aspect of, um, like, ultra trail runs where you can have like a pacer running with you for the last 40 miles, and you have like a crew that helps change out your fuel at the aid stations and things like that. So um, that can kind of be fun too, to share it with people that um, you care about.
I can definitely see that, and from what I've seen when I watch YouTube documentaries, that's kind of the vibes you get. Like you have your crew, they're there for
Yeah,
you, they're helping you, they're cheering you on. You sometimes get the pacers come in, and it really is kind of, it's obviously an individual sport, but it's very much a team effort
yeah.
in terms of getting that done. Who do you have, like a designated pit crew that usually comes out? Parents, family, anything like that, or is it?
Um, yeah, like at Leadville, I've had, um, like, my friend Jeff has been there for all three, and he'll come out to California with me. And
What makes a good pit crew? Like, what are you looking for?
um, it's sort of hard. Like, I always, like, I think about it a lot. Like, who do I want to be running with me, like, in this part of the course? And I always find it interesting what the pacing sort of, or crewing, brings out of them. Like, last year, my girlfriend Quinn was there pacing and crewing, and um, she's also like a competitive runner, and I've seen her race, but I didn't really realize how competitive she was until um, she was out there, like, running with me, and then sort of after her pacing leg was on, sort of keeping me going all the way to the end.
Yeah, that my wife's a runner. She's qualified for Boston. She's training for Boston right now. Um, I've never been historically a runner. I'm, like I
Yeah,
said, like we were talking, I'm getting more into it. I come from a power anaerobic background, weightlifting, speed, explosive football, and I'm trying to develop that aerobic side of me. So I'm running quite a bit more. But I'm running for, again, I don't want to bring that competition because I've spent a lot of time in that. I don't want to bring that
yeah,
training aspect in, that pain yet. I really just want to develop, the enjoyment of running. So that's kind of what I'm finding myself getting into. And while I've been doing that, I am actually trying to enjoy it. I am enjoying it quite a bit more. Like the thing about, being a speed-based athlete is, in track, I was running, 400 meters, stuff like that. So painful events in the terms of like, oh, I need to run hard, I need to run fast, and then I die, and running's never any fun because it always
Yeah.
involves pain. And now I'm starting to develop like, okay, running can be fun. You can develop, you can keep your heart rate down in that zone too. You can keep your body moving and it doesn't have to be super uncomfortable. And you do feel super good after, like you feel that sense
Yeah.
of enjoyment without the sense of destruction usually that comes with like a heavy barbell or something like that. So
Yeah.
I've started to experience that joy quite a bit more. So I'm excited to see where that develops my fitness, because I would like to develop that aerobic side of me more and see where that goes. I've had fun with the weights and the speed time. I'm trying to go the other route now. That said, have you always been aerobic? Like, has track and long distance been your sport, cross country?
So I grew up, I played football, like Pop Warner football, and soccer and baseball and basketball. And I went into high school and I wanted to be like the all-American boy, like football in the fall and basketball in the winter and baseball in the spring. But I wasn't even 5 feet tall as a freshman in high school. And for some reason that year, they switched from metal to wood bats for
Oh,
baseball. So I could like barely even lift up the wooden bat. Um, so that, it was my sophomore year in high school when I made the switch to indoor track and track. I still did soccer in the fall, so I switched to that too. Um, and then in college, I was actually an 800, 1500 meter runner, and I even ran the 4x4 a
geez.
lot.
Yeah.
And I was doing some of the powerlifting for that. So
Okay.
I love doing the power cleans.
Of course.
We didn't
Me too.
like, I didn't put them over my head, but just
Yeah.
up to
The power
my
cleans are
chest.
power cleans
Yeah.
are where the fun's at anyway.
Yeah.
That's I'm good with that. So you didn't really have that endurance background. I mean, seemed like a sprinter. 1,500 meters still pretty close to a
Yeah.
sprint if you're at the top. Yeah.
Right. I was doing cross country
Okay.
in college, and we ran 8K, so 5 miles.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and then after college, I like progressed up to the running road marathons, and then it was COVID that sort of bumped. COVID shut down all the road races, but some trail races were still going on, so that's when I sort of bumped up to that.
How many marathons did you run before you switched?
I think it was 7. Yeah.
What was the time frame for those couple years?
Uh, that was probably over the course of 5 years.
Okay. So after those, what was what made, I know you said COVID transitioned that switch into trail, but what kept you there? Why didn't you go back over to the marathon?
Um, so I fell in love with it. It was, the first summer training to Leadville, I just had so much fun going into the mountains every weekend to train and camping out and going to new places. And yeah, it was just awesome. And then I was also I'm better at it than I am at road marathons. And I got the sponsorships with On to continue to do it. So yeah, like some of both, like I enjoy it a lot and I'm good at it. Um,
Like you
which,
said, winning's fun. So
yeah,
I
right.
get that.
Yeah.
With
Yeah. And
I know.
with, sorry, yeah, with road marathons, it was like fun, but seemed to always be like a time trial. Like I'd go to the Boston Marathon and um, yeah, just sort of just trying to run as fast as I could. And it didn't really matter what place I got. And with mountain ultra trails, I've been able to sort of be competitive. And while I still want to run fast, I can um, be like actually racing and trying to win or get a podium spot.
How much would you say mindset comes into it when you're deep into the race?
I think yeah, it's hard to say. Like, I do think it's important. I think it's hard for me to sort of, because I'm like in it. Um, I've always wondered why, like, what makes me good at it. Because there are people that can run a marathon much faster than me that I can beat in a 100-mile race. And so is that, like, I think some of that might be mindset, but it's hard to like
A lot of
quantify.
that. I'll
Yeah.
say a lot of that is mindset. Is there like points where you're like in the dark, like mentally, not physically, where you're like at these low points, and I'm like, and you think about walking or stopping or slowing down? Like, do you ever get those points?
Um, yeah, like definitely there can be, there are times I don't think I ever, um, I mean, that's not, yeah, like, and sometimes you want to drop out, or usually it's not slowing down, because when you slow down, it just means that you're going to finish slower,
Yeah,
like
do it
longer to
longer.
finish. Um, so yeah, they're like definitely, there's usually a low point in a race, like a mental low point.
When does
Um,
that usually come? Is there like a mileage where you're usually that pops up?
um, I would say like usually, because if you do it right, like you feel really good at the start because you're running like pretty slow. Um, if you're running 100 miles, like running the first 10 miles should be a breeze. I think it's like once you, probably like something to do with just the marathon distance being the thing. Like once you get past that, it's like, all right, I've just ran a whole marathon. I still have over 70 miles to go. And like you feel tired from running that far. So I think like in that point where it's not like super hard yet, but um, it's definitely not easy anymore. And the distance left is still it's a really big number.
Yeah. How are the night portions of the event? Like, do you find that when it gets darker and you're alone and it's quiet, like, is it more difficult, do you find, like, mentally?
So at Leadville, it starts in the dark, and um, I've been finishing just before
Like,
it gets dark again,
dark
which
again.
is nice. And so with Leadville, I like to see those first couple hours as just a time to like ease into the race and not get too excited. Um, but at UTMB, um, which is the one in Europe that I was talking about, the
Mhm.
race starts at 6 p.m. And so
And
you get a couple hours of light, and then
yeah,
everyone's running through the dark. Um, and yeah, I think I didn't have a great race there, so I think I would need to sort of prepare better for that and like go out and do training runs in the dark. Um, it can sort of, I think it can be kind of like peaceful and sort of help you like get um, sort of just worrying about what you're doing and not what everyone else is doing. Um, but then there's a lot of other things to think about, like headlamps and um, sleep deprivation and things
yep.
like that.
What is that like for you? Because I've passed this on to my wife. I'm very sensitive about my sleep. I guard it
Yeah.
closely. I always have. So like I've got pretty strict, bedtimes, wake up times. I like my mattress. I got my whole room is set up for optimized sleep, from like blackout curtains to an 8 sleep to keep my
Nice.
bed cool. So I take it seriously. So and I know, like when I did that 24-hour max distance around the track, the sleep affected me. I get to the point where I'm just like, motivation drops, desire drops. You just want to sleep. So how do you combat that sleep deprivation?
Um,
Or is it just your why? Like you've trained for this?
yeah. So the yeah, UTMB was the only. I think it helped that it was early in the race. I think if it would be different if I was taking 30 hours to run Leadville when you get to that second or that night, like it starts Saturday and you get Saturday night and you still you have to get through that whole night before the sun comes up.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember at UTMB, it's sort of uplifting when the sun does come up in the morning and you've sort of made it through the night and you don't have to worry about all the headlamps are falling as much and you sort of refocus on the running.
Do you plan on doing any longer distances?
Oh, I don't know. Uh, a lot of there are a couple that are like 130 miles, like Badwater. I don't know if you've heard of
I've
that
heard it.
one.
I was thinking more like, what is it? The Moab 240.
Yeah, that's like a big jump from
Yeah, that's a huge jump.
because they
Hey,
don't
you
even
went from
jump to 200;
you,
they jump to 250 or
yeah.
um, yeah. I don't know. If
I
you had
saw
if you had talked to me 10 years ago, I might not have said I would do a 100 mile.
yeah, exactly. I mean, you went from them road marathons straight to 40s, then to 100. So I feel like it's in the realm. It's a proportional jump from
Yeah,
100. So because I was looking at the I saw the woman. She won woman, and then she won 5th overall at the Moab 240, and she did it like 70 something hours. And I'm
yeah,
just like trying to wrap my mind around that.
yeah. Well, that's the thing is it's like a little over twice as long, but then the
Yeah.
time wise, it's probably like 3 times or 4 times longer. Um,
Just brutal. Then you're going through
yeah,
multiple days, no sleep, multiple
yeah,
nights, just moving. And that's a totally different animal. I just what I'm hearing, the way you talk about running, I'm sure that may be a natural transition that you get to eventually as you push yourself through the sport of endurance running.
yeah. I mean, it could be, but there are also so many cool 100 mile races to do and all over the world. So
What's
yeah,
the
I
one
don't
you want
know.
to do the most? What's the one you want to do the most?
Um, so I do. Well, I'm really excited for Western States
Mm.
this June because it is.
You said that's the most
There's so much
prestigious.
history and
Yeah.
prestige, and I want to do really well there. And um, I want to go back and have a good experience at UTMB. Um, I sort of I didn't have a great race there, and then I sort of had a bad attitude. I'm really proud that I finished, but
Mhm.
I'd like to go and have a more positive experience there.
What
Um,
was bad about it? Like, did your crew
um,
do something? Did you not fuel right? Was it just an off day?
I think I I tried to use my Leadville training to run UTMB, and just that double the elevation gain and loss just sort of turns it into a kind of a different, almost a different sport. Um, so I would just train differently, and um, yeah, I had really high goals going into it, and I knew at halfway that I wasn't going to achieve them, and that's a long way to go when um,
Yeah, that's tough.
yeah, you feel like you've sort of struck out on the race.
Does that lead you at all to wanting to just drop out? Or is there just like a mindset shift? Like, hey, I'm here, train for this. I'm not going to get the time that I want, but I still just want to finish? Or
Yeah, I did have to sort of, switch it from sort of the more competitive to, all right, let's just get this done. And I didn't really have any good excuses to drop out. Like I wasn't hurt or, and I'd already run 50 miles. So it's not like I could have like entered a different race in 2 weeks. So, like it's, um, I was really proud to finish. And I think putting myself in those really tough situations just sort of prepares me for the next one. When I do go back to Leadville, it's like, okay, I know I was out running around Mont Blanc for 25 hours. So I can definitely run for under 16 hours at Leadville.
exactly, you're just kind of banking those hardships that you draw on later when you're at a different hard point. Like, it's not as bad as that one time that I did that, and so you can push through. That's huge. I think that's mindset. Like, I think that's a huge part of it. Is like you were saying, like you weren't really sure if the mindset difference was a thing, but I think it definitely is. Like, if you have that self-awareness or the ability to just be like, hey, I'm in the suck now, but I was in the suck before. And I know it's easy to say like, oh, it wasn't as bad when you're in your current suck, but it was, and you made it through, and you're able to rationalize that and just focus on the task at hand. I definitely think that's a mindset advantage that you probably carry over some other people.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So with the this one coming up in June, you're kind of still in your recovery phase from New Zealand, and then you're going to start kicking off for that one there. Is that one, like you said, it's got the most history, it's got the most prestige. Does that one come with a little bit of prize purse or any contracts on the line for you or anybody who runs?
No prize money, but
these races, man.
They don't even.
Well, the real question: do you have
entries,
to pay?
But
do you have to pay to sign up? And they don't give prize money.
Yeah,
that's the problem right there.
Right. But there's like good bonuses for doing well there from the brands. So
good. That's good.
Yeah, it's like another one of those. It's like they're trying sort of presented as an amateur event, but the brands are paying pretty good money to people that do well, and doing well there. It could lead to bigger or more sponsorship opportunities.
Okay. Is there like an all-encompassing like championship race that you like people go to or qualify for each year that says I'm the best 100-mile runner in the world?
So the closest thing is UTMB they've created this UTMB World Series. And there are qualifying events all over the world. And you get by usually it's top 3, and they have races that they call a major where it's top 10, and that gets you into UTMB. So that's they sort of call themselves a world. It's kind of like a world championship. There is a mountain ultra trail world championships this September, but they don't have a 100-mile race. The longest race there is 50 miles. And then Western states, they call this the Super Bowl of 100-mile races.
Okay.
So it's still, sort of, there's no real, like system that leads to one world champ.
Okay. It'd be interesting to see that develop with the rise of popularity that it's
Yeah.
gaining. Hopefully something does kind of come up too that not only brings kind of that, that name, that title, but hopefully brings a little bit of more money and stuff into the sport as well.
Yeah.
How long do you hope or plan on doing these ultra runs?
Um, so there's, I mean, people have done really well, like well into their 40s. So it hasn't really been specifically a young woman's um, sport. So I'm 36 now, and I think I can be competitive for 5, 10 more years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to
And then I
see.
can try the 200-mile race.
Yes, and then you'll shift over because you can just like going from marathoning to the 100 mile. The overall speed drops a little bit, and you
Yeah.
just got to go a little bit longer. Um,
Yeah.
but it's interesting seeing running, like the amount of time, like obviously you can develop, your aerobic capacity relatively quickly if you put in the time. A couple months, you can see significant improvements. You can develop that VO2 max. But it's interesting to see the people who've accumulated that for years and years on end, just like the amount of difference that it has compared to somebody else who's just like been training really hard for a couple of years, even though like on paper, sometimes you see like relative like VO2 max, it's just like they have just a different gear and a
Yeah.
different ability to sustain and maintain for such a long time. So I definitely think you're right. Like they always say, like you have like the dad strength or something like that. You have like once you have that years underneath your belt, it's even if you're at, an older age, like up into the 40s, you're still at a huge advantage compared to some other people because you've just developed that volume.
Yeah. And just, um, I think you just learn patience and sort of just how your body is feeling in certain points of a race. And I think, yeah, you might not be as fast, but just like knowing your body so much better could sort of make up for that.
I was reading like survivors of the Titanic, you would think would be like the younger and the healthier. But when it was
Mhm.
like proportionate to the actual people who made it through and survived, it actually skewed towards the older demographic, and the younger, healthier people actually died. And what they decided that was from is because the older people had been through hardship before, and they're like, oh, there's an end. Like I'll get through it. Versus like the younger demographic, they're like, this is the hardest thing ever. Nobody can make it through, and they gave
Yeah.
up and they lost like kind of the will to live there. And I think that's a huge advantage as well, that, as you get older and you bring that to the sport, you have just that experience of difficulty and challenge, but also you have the identity and the proof that you've backed it up and you've made it through. And so you're able to have that mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting.
Well, Adrian, do you have plans on resetting the course record at the Leadville?
I'll definitely go back
Yeah.
to Leadville. They, one of the things about the 100 milers in the US is they give you a belt buckle when
Oh, cool.
you finish. And
Yeah.
if you run 10 times, you get like a huge 1,000-mile belt buckle. So um, that's like sort of one of my long-term goals. And
Yeah.
I think, like we were just talking about, if I do that, I think it means that I'll be running for a long time.
And I assume as a past, winner, you get guaranteed invite each year
Um, they've done that so far. I hope.
so far. So not
Yeah.
guaranteed, but for now.
Yeah.
That, okay. So the unwritten rule there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking your time to come out and talk to me. I have been fascinated with the sport of ultra running and, the ultra distance, because you guys do something that to me is amazing and unfathomable. And it's something that I want to develop it within myself. Again, it's going to be slow playing the long game, but I'm here for the fun and for the enjoyment. So that's something I definitely am excited to learn more about and develop within myself. I have a tradition on this podcast where I ask my guest who is the person that they would be most interested in speaking to, who's alive and well. And if I can ever get them on the podcast, I will, of course, let them know that you were the one that inspired me to bring them on. So who would that person be for you?
And are you gonna reach out to them and try and get them on?
I absolutely will reach out. Obviously, if it's somebody who's got 100 million followers on Instagram, I'm gonna postpone it until this grows a little bit more, and then I will reach out. But I will reach out, and I will reach out multiple times over the course of years as I do this.
This is a tough one. I'm just trying to think. I'd throw out Tom Brady right away because
You're the second person to say that. My last guest said Tom Brady as well.
Really?
Yeah. Big Pats fan or big Tom Brady fan?
Yeah, I grew up
two different things.
Boston, so
okay.
So both. Let me.
No, you're good. While you're thinking on that,
yeah,
where can people find you? What's the Instagram? How can people follow you?
Yeah, Instagram is Macdonald Adrian, MAC for Macdonald, and then I'm posting on Strava every day if you want to follow my training.
Yes.
Yeah, and then a person to interview. Let's see. I was just in New Zealand. He also runs for On. He's a adaptive athlete. He runs in a a prosthetic blade, and he's a trail runner. He runs. I don't know if he's quite done an ultra yet, but he's done 40 miles at Mount Blanc, 40K at Mount Blanc. And he's trying to sort of create opportunities for adaptive athletes in trail running. And his name is Zach Friedley.
Amazing. Yeah. I would absolutely love to talk to him.
And I'm sure he would talk to you.
You said he hasn't done an ultra yet. What's the cross line? What's the line for ultra?
Yeah, anything longer than a marathon.
Okay.
So generally it starts at 50K.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Well, Adrian, thank you again for the time. I'll absolutely reach out to him. And with the
only
race
if Tom Brady doesn't respond.
I'll reach out to him first. I'll do my best. With you doing this race in June, is there any way, is that live streamed? Can people follow that at all?
Yeah, there is a live stream. I would have to look up the details.
Yeah, no problem. I can look it up on Instagram and see if I can put that in the show notes. And because I would love to follow that. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, you should. And there's some good, once you've gotten through all the Leadville YouTube videos, there's some good Western States ones too.
I'll start that one tomorrow when I'm doing my run on the treadmill. Well, Adrian, again, thank you for your time. And I can't wait to see how you do in the Western States coming up in June.
All right. Thanks.